So, welcome to the VCEA community, to this, what will be the first town hall given by President Schultz and Provost Chilton. I'm happy to have you join us today. I will be working in the background today answering questions. So if you've got questions as we go, you can ask them in the Q&A functions. And we will have live moderation of those questions at the end of the conversation. But for now, I'm going to turn it over to President Schultz and Provost Chilton and welcome them to the Voiland College of Engineering and Architecture.
All right, Mary, thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who's joined us today. This is our very first one of about 20 town halls for this semester. So if today occasionally it's a little rocky in transitions or things like that, it's just us getting it down. Normally we do engineering in about the middle, and we're really ready to go on that. So first, let me thank all of you for the great work that you've been doing last semester, in the summer, and this fall. What an unprecedented time in higher education. I'm starting my 29th year as a faculty member, and I just don't remember anything quite like this ever with the uncertainty that's out there. And we're sort of dealing with three things. We're dealing with the challenges of a pandemic, COVID-19, and how we react to it. The second thing, we're dealing with really serious issues nationally around racism, social mobility, lots of different real challenges with the Black Lives Matter movement and the way we respond to that as a university. And if that wasn't enough, then the third thing is all of that also has meant we have some pretty severe budget challenges moving forward as the state of Washington's economy continues to recover, but it's recovering in a very slow period of time. And we know in this upcoming legislative session that we're in for a bit of a challenge. So we've got all that going, but I'm proud of the way you all have stepped up, continue to step up, putting our students first, making sure that our research and scholarly activity continues, and that many of you have transformed the way you teach and the way you work in a very short period of time. And I really, really do appreciate that. The other thing we're going to continue to try and do is keep everybody as updated as we can. And, there is a fine line between eye roll on another, email from the senior administration about something and making sure that you have to kind of find your information out through the newspaper or hearing a rumor here or there. So we're going to continue to try and balance that with regular communications, town halls, not just these, but also the other town halls that we do for the whole university community, emails, social media feeds, and things like that. If anybody has suggestions on better ways to communicate or frequency or things like that, please let us know. We're going to try and continue to do the absolute very best we can. So anyway, we're going to keep at it, and we're going to continue to put health and safety of faculty, staff, and students as really our primary objective moving forward. And it may not always seem that way, but that's something that we're working on a lot. So with that, if we can go to my first slide. All right. Ginger, next slide, please. Oop. Slide 2, there we go. Next slide, please. All right. Washington State University acknowledges that its locations statewide are in the homelands of Native peoples who have lived in this region from time immemorial. The university expresses its deepest respect for and gratitude to these original caretakers of the region. As an academic community, we acknowledge a responsibility to establish and maintain relationships with the Native peoples in support of tribal sovereignty and the inclusion of their voices in teaching, research, and programming. We also pledge that these relationships will consist of mutual trust, respect, and reciprocity. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce our new provost, Elizabeth Chilton. Elizabeth?
Well, hello, and I'm really thrilled to be joining you today for the virtual town hall meeting, and I'm looking forward to interacting with each of you, hopefully in person in the not too distant future. I began my position as WSU's provost and executive vice president just 8 weeks ago today. I moved to Pullman from New York in late June with my son, who's a rising college sophomore, and my husband, who, like myself, is a professor of anthropology. I think on the next slide, I have a picture of the motley crew there. And we also brought with us our two rambunctious dogs who will be looking forward to the snow when it comes time for winter. My research specialization is the archaeology of Northeastern North America, and particularly North American technologies or Native American technologies, ecology, and subsistence prior to European colonization, including the application of material science approaches to ancient ceramic technologies. After spending 5 years at Harvard University post-PhD, I then spent 15 years at UMass Amherst as a faculty member, department chair, center director, and lastly, the associate vice chancellor for research and engagement. I then served as Dean of Arts and Sciences at Binghamton University in New York for 3 years before joining the Cougar community this summer. I did want to mention, this is mostly today is about you all, but I did want to mention, since you're all getting to know me, that over the next 6 months, there are going to be, aside from the day-to-day, some really key areas of focus for me and my office. First of all, creating meaningful and productive system-wide partnerships and addressing the issues of systemness that have been at the forefront of my conversations with all of you, starting with my very first interview. Secondly, we'll talk about this a little later in the presentation, but a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion really guides everything that I do in my professional and personal life. And then finally, promoting a model of a whole life philosophy. Again, Kirk is going to say more about this at the end of our presentation. But for me, part of supporting equity and inclusion is being kind to ourselves and to one another, especially during these challenging times. So thank you again for attending today's town hall, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Well, each year we do this, we tend to change it up a little bit. And last year we were very data heavy. And the fact that we're on Zoom this year meant that one of the things we tried to do is cut down on some of the data heavy slides, really hit on some of the things that we thought were important moving ahead. Just as a reminder, the Q&A portion of this is open. And so if you have questions about anything we're talking about or things that you want us to address as we move through, make sure you post them there. When Elizabeth's talking, I'll be trying to answer a few of those on chat. She'll do the same. And then if we don't get to them, we'll try and get to them at the very end. So next slide. Some recent highlights. So we completed a new, first ever actually, WSU system strategic plan. And Elizabeth will talk a little bit later about the WSU Pullman plan. And before, if we did strategic planning, the WSU Pullman plan, strategic plan were always the same thing. And it was really important as we look at ourselves as more importantly in the future as a system, that we really have a set of key objectives on what we're trying to do, what we're trying to accomplish. There's always different people who say, well, this ought to be done this way or that way. One of the things that as we looked at other system plans and we looked at other places trying to figure out how to maybe optimize the way that they function as a complex interconnected system, one of the things that's been emphasized again and again is you've got to define roles and responsibilities very clearly. Who is responsible for what? And so my next letter to campus, I'll talk about some things that we're doing in this space and what we think we're going to be doing on this over the course of the academic year. It's nice sometimes, frankly, as an academic leader to write about something besides COVID-19. So that'll be coming in this next month's letter. We're really pleased on the launch of our new Center for Research in Emerging Infectious Diseases in Nairobi. This is due to NIH grant, and it's going to be managed, led, and run by Karaoke Jenga, who is our newest member of the National Academies. And this is a really exciting opportunity. It's about $7.6 million in funding over 5 years from NIH. We also created a new department of viticulture and enology, and this is really responding to industry needs. In our last campaign for WSU, we built a state-of-the-art research and teaching facility on our Tri-Cities campus around viticulture and enology, and industry was asking for us to have a standalone degree program that's really a specialty in this particular area. So Andre Wright and his team of folks have been working with our faculty in Connors and other areas to stand up this program, and it's an important step for us to take. If you're going to build a state-of-the-art complex and you're going to put it right in the middle of wine country, we need to make sure that those students are getting great hands-on experiences. And so the V&E program itself will be housed at WSU Tri-Cities. And then finally, the kickoff of the Transformative Change Initiative. This is led out of the Provost's office. It applies to all of our campuses. This is not a Pullman-specific program, and it's really designed to train folks to help us do a better job with student retention. And already we've seen some nice positive increases in our retention rates across the system due to this initiative. And we want to continue to find things like this that work well, that are system-wide, and that have positive effects on our students, our faculty, and our staff. So next slide, please. Well, we've also had some noteworthy faculty honors, and we can't take all the achievements that you all represent and somehow cram them into one slide. So we always hit a few things. And this year, we were really pleased to see 7 faculty elected to the Washington State Academy of Sciences. And this number's gone up every year since I've been here. I know Anjan Bose in VCEA plays a major leadership role in this, and really appreciate Anjan's leadership on the Washington Academy of Sciences. The faculty that were selected this year were Tim Baszler in the Paul Allen School for Global Animal Health, Kelly Brayton in the College of Veterinary Medicine, Laura Greiner-Hill, who serves as our Vice Provost for Faculty Development and Affairs and is also in Human Development in Connors, Alaire McLean in Sociology and Arts and Sciences, Michael McDonnell in the Elson S. Floyd College of Medicine, Sterling McPherson, the Director of Biostatistics and Clinical Trial Design, also in the College of Medicine, Katrina Mealy, who is in the College of Veterinary Medicine, and Chin Zhang, who's a professor in precision and automated agricultural systems, also in Connors. I want to encourage all of you to nominate colleagues for this. University of Washington typically has a very large number of new folks that are in this, and it's important for, as the other leading research university in the state, it's important for us to make sure we're nominating our colleagues for these types of honors. We also had 3 faculty named fellows of the American Academy of Nursing, and that was Renee Hochsel, Shelley Fritz, and Hakab Shoshone will be inducted in late October of this year. And that was only they were 3 of 230 people that were elected to the American Academy of Nursing this last year. And then finally, Stephen Hines from the College of Vet and Ed was awarded 4th place in an international competition for instructor creativity during the COVID-19 pandemic. I know many of you are thinking about different ways to interact with our students, different ways to teach and work in the classroom. And I assure you we will have more faculty that receive national recognition for their creativity during a really trying time. Next slide, please. Well, we have fantastic faculty, and the reason we're all here is because we also have fantastic students. And each year we have several students win really national awards. And Dean Mary Rezac shared with us some of the student and faculty accomplishments when Elizabeth and I had a chance to meet with your leadership team just a few minutes ago. This year, Nife Shala Dalre was one of 20 students nationally receive award from Phi Beta Kappa. She's a neuroscience major from Nigeria, member of the Honors College, and received the Phi Beta Kappa's first Key into Public Service Scholar Award. We also had a couple Borlaug Scholars. Only 16 graduate students nationally are selected as Borlaug Scholars. We had 2. And the first is Nikayla Strauss, who's a PhD student in Crop and Soil Sciences, and Zara York, a PhD student in the Department of Horticulture, were both selected this year. And then finally, a Foley Fellowship. Andrew Given, a Doctor of Nursing practice student at WSU Vancouver, was the first nursing student to receive a graduate student fellowship from the Foley Institute for Public Policy. So we continue to see fantastic recognition given to our students. And I think it's fun to see young folks come to WSU, whether it's an undergraduate or graduate level, and be recognized for the excellence in the work that they're doing on research and scholarship moving ahead. So next slide, please. Well, as an engineer, I've got to at least show one graph or two with numbers on it. They wouldn't let me, I couldn't do all just pictures. Congratulations to everybody. We saw a record research expenditures at WSU last year at just under $370 million. And you can see from the graph here how this continues to increase each particular year. This is a hustle factor. This is you all writing fantastic proposals. It's great to see the College of Engineering continue to be one of our leaders on campus in securing those external funds needed for research and scholarly activities. So congratulations to everybody. It wasn't too many years ago. If we look back there, 2007, 2008, we were right at $200 million. We're closing in on $400 million in the next several years. And if we normalize this per faculty member, we vastly exceed our peers, schools like Texas A&M and Purdue. So what that says is we have exceptional faculty doing exceptional work and competing on a national, international basis and being successful. So congratulations. And this is something we should all be proud of. Next slide, please. We also, each year, I like to talk a little about some of our successes in intercollegiate athletics. And what's shown here is our soccer players. And this last year, many of you know that our soccer team finished in the Final Four of women's soccer. It's our highest ranked team ever. They went and had to win 3 consecutive away matches against higher ranked teams. And it was really an exciting run for us to be able to watch and see. Academically, though, we talk about student athletes, and I think it's important that we recognize some of the great work that our student athletes are doing. For the 5th straight semester, WSU student athletes maintain their highest cumulative GPA, 3.17. That's across all sports and all student athletes. For the first time in school history, all of our athletic teams averaged over a 3.0 GPA in the spring semester of 2020. Pat Chun, our athletic director, has emphasized that we need folks that are going to excel in the classroom. And if they excel in the classroom, they tend to excel on the field. And he's really emphasized academics, and he's hired coaches that emphasize the academic side. And then finally, if we look at, I'll show you some specific numbers on new cash that's come in. But this last year, we raised $27 million in new gifts, outright dollars, and pledges for intercollegiate athletics, which was almost twice what the previous record was. So again, when we talk about supporting intercollegiate athletics through donor dollars and other things, we're starting to see that performance from Pat and his team as well. So lots of exciting things. We could be going on for quite a while. Let me finish off with one more before I turn it over to Elizabeth. So next slide. Philanthropy continues to be really important for us moving ahead. Last year, we had about $125 million in philanthropic activity, and that was despite COVID-19. We had adjusted our goal downward, in about March, and wind up exceeding that. And so we need to continue to keep growing that during this time. In our last recession, we saw, a lot of people's wealth significantly decrease. Right now, we're seeing the stock market at really high levels. So there's a lot of our donors, supporters, benefactors that are still doing very well and are still interested in supporting these important initiatives at WSU. Our biggest this last year that we're very proud of is we received a gift from Bruce Admonson and Julie Parker to establish our second endowed deanship at WSU, and that was in the Murrow College of Communication, and endowed directorship for the athletic director. We also appreciate that we had alumni and friends that contributed over $200,000 in short-term cash to help with COVID-19 student relief funding that came off of a couple pitches that we made. And we appreciate the generosity of folks in really a time of need for many of our students and their families really stepping up. So we're going to continue to work on this. Dean Rizak and her team are out there. They're speaking to a number of folks that are very interested in investing in engineering, and maybe they've invested a small amount before, but they are interested in really stepping up their game and providing substantial resources to engineering. So I appreciate the work that Mary's doing in this regard, and I think we're going to see some significant success in the next 12 to 18 months with some donors that, for whatever reason, they've been there, but maybe haven't taken that step we need them to take, and I think we're close. So next slide. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Elizabeth to talk about some of the recent achievements in the college.
All right. Well, thank you, Kirk. As Kirk mentioned, we met just an hour ago or a little more with the leadership of the college, and being that this is week 8 for me, I learned a great deal more about some of the achievements and accomplishments of faculty and students across the college and across the campuses. So today I'll just highlight a few things for you. I mean, first of all, Dean Rizak made clear that the vision of the college was to be a top-ranked college nationally and internationally. And so I will just clearly, you're all on a path to that. You're already there, and you're continuing in that direction. But I'll mention just a few highlights. Next slide, please. First of all, in terms of computer sciences program, I understand that the undergraduate program has nearly doubled in the last few years, with courses offered across the system, all campuses but Spokane, I believe, and also through Global. The computer science undergraduate program is now one of the fastest growing programs in the Pacific Northwest. Also, another achievement, we had 3 National Science Foundation Career Award winners in computer science in 2020. Congratulations to Professor Dubey, Professor Gupta, and Professor Arnaudova. In fact, 70% of our School of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science assistant professors have received NSF Career or DARPA Young Faculty Awards since 2014. So congratulations. Computer science grads are employed at the top tech companies worldwide. You can see many of them mentioned on the slide, but I'll also mention Boeing and Cisco and many others. And I also understand that 100% of our senior design capstone projects in computer science have an industry partner, really making good on our land grant mission. So congratulations on that as well. Next slide. So for the college overall, the new awards in the college, research awards, represent the work of faculty, staff, and students across the system. And as Kirk mentioned, as a system, we've continued to rise in terms of research expenditures. But Voiland College assistant professors are major contributors to WSU's research enterprise, contributing, I believe, around $28 million in active grants to the university's portfolio. There's also quite an impressive range of research in the college, from work aimed at engineering and health to sustainable infrastructure. And faculty receive significant NSF support, while the portfolio of funding from Department of Energy and the Department of Defense are growing. Faculty in the college have received numerous national awards and prestigious faculty fellowships. And as Kirk mentioned, a few of the highlights, there are many from Voiland College. Overall, the quality of the college's graduate program and the success of our graduate students in general is also very impressive. I understand that the college is the leading producer of mechanical engineering grads in the state, and the top 10 in the nation, I believe. I think I have that right. Professor Rizek will tell me if I'm wrong about that. And I'm looking forward to getting to know more about the college in the weeks and months to come. But I'm very impressed with what I've seen so far. And I'm likewise impressed with the leadership of Dean Rizek. Next slide, please. I did want to mention that Voiland faculty are committed clearly to the success of our students, and you have all gone above and beyond to maintain high standards of excellence for instructional delivery, especially under the extraordinarily challenging times that we're in. I hope that all the faculty knew or know about the Provost Emergency Funds. And we have allocated about $100,000 across the system to faculty making requests for the move to remote delivery. And I did want to mention one innovative idea. It came from Professor Dave Thiessen, who teaches chemical engineering. He received graduate student support as well as funds to purchase multiple web cameras so that students will have remote access to the lab computers, and they will have multiple webcams that view different parts of the chemical process. Thus, students will be able to develop operating procedures, design and conduct experiments, interpret experimental results, as well as prepare and evaluate written and oral reports based on the chemical process project work that's being conducted remotely. So really just one example of the innovation and the dedication of our faculty. Finally, I understand that Voiland staff and faculty partnered with Carson and enrollment management staff to increase enrollment and reduce the summer melt, so to speak, that we typically see in admissions through innovative student marketing and engagement activities. And this really paid off in terms of the freshman enrollment, really particularly notable in these challenging times for higher education. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Kirk.
Great, thanks, Elizabeth, and congratulations to the college on all those fantastic achievements. A lot going in undergraduate education, scholarly work, and faculty achievement. So thank you. So I'm just going to briefly do a little bit of a fiscal update, and the first thing I want to just emphasize is that I know there's a lot of uncertainty and questions out there. What's COVID-19 going to do to our budget? What are we going to do? Will there be furloughs? We don't have them this year, but will there be furloughs next year? What are cuts going to look like, or those kinds of questions? One, I just want to remind everybody, a lot of those things we just simply don't have answers for. You can argue the politics of it, but the state of Washington is elected and the governor is elected to not call a special session of the legislature to deal with this until at the earliest post the election time. So given that, one of the challenges we have is right now we just don't have a lot of information. You can read out there what the economic impact is going to be on the state budget, but in terms of what that means for higher education, what will there be new tax revenues coming in? What will cuts look like? We simply don't know. And we may not know until early 21 what some of those things are going to look like. So I want to emphasize that as soon as we have reasonable information, we will be passing it along to the campus at large, to the deans, vice presidents, chancellors. But a lot of times it's not, we're not giving it to you. We just simply don't have it. And we're going to be careful moving forward to make sure that we respond in an assertive fashion with the legislature. We're going to work like hell, frankly, to make sure that we preserve our funding, that we get support for things that we need to. It's going to be a challenging climate, but we've got a great legislative team, and I'm confident that we're going to be able to bring our message through in a really positive way to the legislature about the need for higher education to help regrow Washington's economy. So next slide. Well, I've shown this every year, and I can remember my first year showing this when we were looking at the FY 2016, 2017 data and seeing those huge red bars. Just as a reminder here, what this is showing is annual revenue less expense and what our reserve balances were going to look like. So if we started in 2013, you all have seen this before. We were running about a $25 million a year positive surplus that then was building up a several $100 million reserve fund for WSU. We started a whole series of different initiatives. We started overspending our budget, and the worst was in FY 2017, we overspent by about $30 million. At that time, we really started to put in place, and you all helped us do this, a series of spending reductions as well as enhancement in our income. And we decided that what we want to do is cut that deficit spending by $10 million a year for the next 3 years, so that our target in 2018 was $20 million overage. Our target in 2019 was 10, and by 2020 we would be back to balanced. Well, we exceeded expectations, and you can see here that we actually had our first positive balance again in FY 2019, and then in FY 2020 our reserve balance was about $30 million on the positive side. Now, this $30 million is not sitting here under my desk at the president's office for us to spend on whatever we want to. Where's that $30 million? Well, that's largely at colleges and campuses. That's not really a central reserve fund. That's colleges and others that have either recovered sooner or campuses and other places that never did much in the way of deficit spending. Dean Mary Rezac and her team, you all at the College of Engineering, had to recover from a very massive annual spending deficit and close that gap, and actually will be in a positive this next year. Like all of the rest of our leadership team and deans, when you see something like this, you're like, okay, that's finally time to start investing in faculty, investing in research, investing in student programming, and then COVID-19 hit. So what this has allowed us to do, and the reason that we have not had to do layoffs, that we had to do a furlough program for the entire university, was largely people did such a great job on building those reserve funds that we were able to mitigate having to do a furlough across the entire institution. Now, several people have asked, what about next academic year? We have no idea at this point what tools, what we're going to have to employ to get there. My preference always is not to do salary reductions of any type across campus. I don't want to have to do that, but we're going to have to wait and see what things look like moving ahead. Bottom line, this is the trend in the right direction. We're going to continue to show this kind of graph every year, not to brag about the green bars, but you all should expect university leadership to be managing our resources well. That includes going out and finding new resources, but also means not overspending on presidential pet projects or things like that that may not be aligned with our strategic plan or strategic vision. Next slide. One of the things that we continue to show each year is what are we doing with athletics and our intercollegiate athletics. The reason I'm showing a complete budget picture this year is that changes almost every other week right now as we look and see what the impact is going to be of not playing fall sports. Largely, intercollegiate athletics around the country is all funded through playing football. I'm not making a value judgment about whether it should be that way. That's just simply the way economically has worked. So when you don't play football, that can have significant economic impacts on intercollegiate athletics. At WSU, we estimate this could be somewhere on the order of $30 to $35 million in net revenue loss due to not playing football. We may wind up being able to play a football season or partial football season in the spring. There's lots of issues on that, but we just simply don't know. What are Pat Chun and his team doing? Well, they've already identified $6.5 million in additional expenditure reductions. They've done, that is part of campus that did do a furlough program, did do salary cuts, and they're getting ready to announce another set of spending reductions over the next week or two to deal with some of the COVID-19 related stuff. So I just don't want anybody out there going, well, once again, academics has got to bear the brunt. Athletics doesn't have to do anything. They've already initiated a series of pretty significant fiscal cutbacks that they felt they needed to do, that we agreed they needed to do to be as responsible as possible during this really challenging time. So next slide. So what we want to now is talk about some new initiatives in our last maybe 10 minutes, things that we think are important for you all to be aware of. So next slide, Ginger. Okay, I mentioned the strategic plan. The plan was approved by the regents in June. We're currently, when I say create a leadership structure for implementation, that's not like hiring a bunch of people. That's, what groupings do we currently have on campus that are important to be weighing in on system related things. And this includes our academic deans, it includes faculty and faculty senate, it includes our chancellors, and we'll put announcements out on some of that. And it's really, how do we get the right people in the room virtually at the right time to help make sure that we're doing, making the right decisions to move our academic programs forward, maintain quality, grow programs in communities where this is really important. That may be a program that we need in Vancouver or we need in Tri-Cities that we shouldn't have in Pullman. Those are things that we got to figure out how to do, and we'll do that in a collaborative way through our governance system. October 8th, we originally would have had something in a big room where we invite people. This will now be virtual. It'll be shorter sessions so that more faculty can participate. And we really want to talk about what can we be doing about rural healthcare and WSU extension. Those are not separate issues. It's really one issue that came up again in a lot of the planning documents. This affects engineering. It's one of your research foci around what types of things we can be doing creatively in the healthcare space to get out there and those rural and underserved communities. We want to make sure we have 4 major goals that have been identified. You all have seen those. We want to put together some groups to kind of help us do that, not groups of 50 people, but groups of doers to help make sure that we're moving forward in a really productive way. Next slide. System roles and responsibilities. I mentioned this earlier. This is something I'll be addressing in our next campus letter, and it'll be addressing throughout the remainder of the year. How can our system strengthen the institution? And I think if you read the roles and responsibilities report or saw it, we have some of the negative attributes of a matrix organization with none of the positives. And so how do we turn things around? And the fact that we are geographically diverse and we're really engaged in our communities where we have campuses, how can we turn that into a strength? Where can we streamline? There's some ways we can fiscally streamline or do things more effectively and efficiently. We need to find ways to do that. And we want to clarify what are system roles, what are campus level roles. Part of my day I spend essentially as the chancellor of WSU Pullman. Part of the day I spend as the WSU president for the system. When I announce a decision or something we're doing, it's not always clear where that's coming from or which hat I'm wearing. Those are the types of things that we need to make sure we're clarifying and we're doing a better job of communicating what those are and arguing sometimes in a positive way about what those things need to look like. Next slide, please. And this is Elizabeth.
All right. Well, thank you, Kirk. With the conclusion of the system strategic plan, it's important to take a look at how that connects to the physical and the global campuses and their strategic planning. As Kirk said, we're part of a system, but we also have unique strengths and constituencies for each of the physical campuses. While each of the other campuses is either in the process or is in the implementation phase of their strategic plan, my understanding is that Pullman has never had its own strategic plan. And so we are embarking on that this fall. I'm working with Craig Parks in my office, who is chairing this committee, which includes 20 staff, faculty, and students from across the entire system. And what's really critical about having a Pullman-focused strategic plan is that as WSU works on its systemness, if there is not a distinct plan for Pullman, then to some degree, the Pullman plan becomes the system plan. And so really making clear its distinct, like as I said, constituencies and priorities is really important. So, you know, our pandemic response has slowed that down a little bit this summer. We're finalizing the committee chairs and the leadership and the membership, but we'll be working on that assiduously over the coming academic year. So next slide, please. Now, I know that Kirk still does not believe me, but I am really excited about budgeting and financial modeling. So I'll tell you a little bit about why. I mean, following the creation of the WSU Systems Strategic Plan, and the work that Kirk outlined of the Fiscal Health Advisory Committee, it's really clear that we need to tie our resource allocation as a system to our goals. And strategic plans are only effective if you know how you are going to allocate resources in order to support the goals that are outlined. So while there's been a lot of progress, as Kirk mentioned, given the significant impact of the pandemic on the university budget, it's now more important than ever to take a look at both the allocation of resources and the long-term efficiencies in expenses and in operations. So Vice President Stacy Pearson and I will be co-chairing an executive budget committee. The charge of the group is to lead the development of system-wide resource allocation to support the new strategic plan and the WSU system. The specific objectives of this committee are to engage the system community in understanding its current resource allocation models and practices and exploring national best practices, establishing guiding principles for desired changes to resource allocation and management of cost structures, proposing specific changes to resource allocation and supporting the system strategic plan and priorities, and then finally facilitating transparent and information and communication with the WSU community. Really, you know, I won't go on about my previous experience in looking at budget models, but the transparency is really key, because if people don't understand what is being incentivized and how to predict what will happen if one undertakes a certain new degree program, for example, then we can't manage the system resources as a whole. Let me just say, next slide, please. I wanted to say a little bit about fall enrollment, because we certainly have received a lot of questions about that. You know, in response to the pandemic, there's been a sort of nationwide concern and obviously declines in enrollments in some institutions. I will say that the data that I'm presenting here are preliminary, and we're still crunching the numbers. So, but there are some important trends to point out. First of all, system-wide enrollment of 31,078 is down less than 2% from the all-time record of last semester. So some small declines, but certainly not as much of a decline as we had feared. The ethnic diversity of our students is still very strong, about 31.5% overall for the system. And our percentage of first generation students system-wide is about 32.5, again, very strong. Enrollment at the Pullman campus is down about 1,100 students to 19,851. Just over 230 new freshmen requested deferral for admission to the spring 2021 or fall 2021. And based on the approved requests, we expect to see more new students enrolled than usual in spring 2021. Of course, I do not have a magic 8 ball, so we're not sure how this will play out, but we're cautiously optimistic right now. Certainly, WSU Health Sciences has the largest enrollment in its history at 1,730 students. And our global campus saw the largest increase, which probably makes sense, enrolling a record of more than 4,000 students, up nearly 750 from fall 2019. I did also want to mention that we're in the process of hiring a vice provost for enrollment management, and anticipate that the search will conclude in October. We're just finalizing the shortlist right now and inviting the finalists over the next couple of weeks. I think that will help us give even more leadership to looking at system-wide enrollment management. Next slide, please. I did want to say a little bit about some provost area initiatives in diversity, equity, and inclusion. But before I do that, I'd like to ask Kirk to talk a little bit more about system-wide initiatives, working groups, et cetera, and then I can follow that up with some provost area.
Great, thanks, Elizabeth. This is an area that is received continuous work, and I know the college is doing a lot of work in this area as well. So just a few quick things. We continue to work on use a little bit of the blueprint, frankly, that were laid out by the 5 working groups over the last several years. And Vice President for Student Affairs, Mary Jo Gonzalez, and Associate Vice President for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusive Excellence, Jamie Nolan, have done a great job of kind of working with this. Now, how do we take that next step forward? And so we're going to be standing up a President's Commission, a new President's Commission, to continue to kind of ensure that the university as a whole, both the Pullman campus and the system as a whole, is really looking broadly at our programming, what we're doing to support students, faculty, and staff from diverse backgrounds. Elizabeth and I have been meeting monthly with the Black Faculty and Staff Association around initiatives that we can take to increase the number of Black faculty, to increase the number of Black staff, how we retain our African American and Black faculty and staff. And they've been very productive, positive conversation. I know Elizabeth's going to share a little bit of some of the work that she's doing. And finally, we have a group that's co-chaired by Chancellor Mel Netzhammer and Dr. Zoe High Eagle Strong out of the Provost's office, that is looking at a lot of our policies through an equity lens. And, just because we did something for the same way for 30 years doesn't mean that we need to continue to do it that way as circumstances change. And it's important that we look at those things. Not a sexy job, right? Going through and plowing through policies, but we have a very diverse group. It's system-wide that's taking a look at that. So we have a lot of things that have been going. We've got some new initiatives moving ahead. And Elizabeth has brought some real passion for this area into her appointment as provost. And so I'll turn it over to Elizabeth to talk about some of the new things that she's doing.
Great. Thank you, Kirk. So one of the things that I talked with Kirk about really early on in my appointment is diversifying the faculty and supporting recruitment and retention, and obviously faculty success. So in recent years, a number of academic institutions have looked to cluster hires to attract and retain a more diverse faculty. And I have done so myself at 2 previous institutions. The idea behind cluster hires is that they allow the building of cohorts of scholars who can support and mentor each other, as well as mentor their new colleagues in a department, college, or the entire institution. So aside from recruiting and retaining a more diverse faculty, when you pair that with an explicit network-based mentoring program, which is sometimes called a mutual mentoring program, cluster hires can really transform the institution through the building of new curricula, research foci, and community engagement. So I've been working with the deans and with the cabinet on on launching a new cluster hire this fall in racism and social inequality in the Americas. And the goal will be to seek scholars who contribute to the work in this area and help lead institutional transformation here at WSU. The cluster hire program will be led by the new Associate Vice Provost for Inclusive Excellence in my office, a position that it has been vacant since May, but we're in the process of recruiting, and hopefully we'll be filling that position in the next couple of weeks. To that point, the Associate Vice Provost for Inclusive Excellence is, as I said, a role that's currently vacant, but we're really looking for that person to bring leadership to academic affairs and helping lead WSU's commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion. So the person who holds this role will identify and implement best practices, evidence-based approaches to faculty hiring, tenure and promotion, research support, faculty retention, teaching and mentoring, and curriculum planning. The Associate Vice Provost will also coordinate with existing diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, many of which Kirk mentioned, in the Division of Student Affairs, the Office of Compliance and Civil Rights, institutional research, and across all 6 campuses in the WSU system. I did also want to touch on the issue of sabbaticals and professional leaves. And this actually is tied to issues of equity and inclusion. We all know that professional leaves are an important opportunity for our tenure stream faculty in advancing their scholarship. In the past, I understand that it was an unspoken rule that one was expected to be physically distant from one's home institution to go away for such a leave. And it's clear that making that a condition of a sabbatical can disadvantage those who have caregiving obligations or economic constraints, family obligations in particular. And so in the next call in mid-September, we are going to make it clear that the physical location of a sabbatical will not be a criteria for evaluating the potential effectiveness of the leave. Obviously these are still intended to advance one's scholarship, but there are many ways to do that without leaving campus. So I think with that, I will turn it over to you, Kirk.
So we continue to move forward pretty aggressively with Workday. Just as a reminder, January 1 is when we expect Workday to be fully operational. There's going to be lots of training opportunities starting in October on videos and other types of things that you can access if you would like. Next slide. Okay, one final one. I put some of the, go one more. That's a great slide. I like the picture, but, okay. One of the things that I think is important, I put in my last note to campus is, we just need to watch our work-life balance. And as a leadership team, we're committed to trying to, avoid those late evening bomb drop emails and things like that, that sometimes are just a habit forming thing. And we'd ask everybody, you got to work the way that you want to work, but try and be careful and be mindful of the folks around us and the stress that almost everybody's in because of COVID-19. So we had a chance to answer a bunch of questions as we're going through that. I know Elizabeth typed some answers, so did I. We appreciate the time today. We appreciate everything this college continues to do. We're proud of it, and we've got our opportunities cut out for us to ensure that you all have the kind of facilities that you need for a top-ranked College of Engineering, and we're just simply not there today. And Mary has worked really hard on a plan to address that. So with that, thank you. Appreciate the time. Sorry we took it all up with our PowerPoint, but hopefully you all, that was always my goal from the beginning, but hopefully we answered some of those questions. And if we didn't get to things, please send them to Mary and she will get them to us and we'll get written answers and we'll make sure we get them back to you all. So thank you.